So Kellyanne Conway, the former counselor to President Trump, appeared on Fox, and I thought the clip was fairly interesting. So I'll play it and I'll respond to the points that she makes.
Let's bring in Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, how big of a threat to the Democrats is this anti-war left that suddenly woke up out of hibernation?
It's a very big threat. You see why Hakeem Jeffries, AOC, these big stars in the Democratic Party don't know how to respond to them. They can't scream diversity, equity, inclusion when somebody's saying, why are you involving us more deeply in Ukraine? And look, I think it's not just young people, but the young people also who supported the Democrats by 28 points last fall in the midterms and supported Joe Biden by 26 points. They can absolutely bleed young voters by not getting a handle of this, Jesse, because young people are saying, look, we can open our hearts widely to Ukraine, but we don't need to open our wallets infinitely. You feel a lot of people on the right saying that as well, many libertarians saying we can't fund these endless wars. And what a difference it makes. Remember in the Trump-Pence administration when we had our NATO partners, our allies, paying more toward the common defense. Now, if you look at the charts, it's the U.S. footing most of the bill. The EU comes in second, but the EU is a lot of countries. Just the U.S. out there alone. So I think it's a problem for Joe Biden, particularly because he's been in Washington for 50 years, and he was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. He was the vice president for 8 years. He is seen not just as the Loch Ness monster of the swamp, but as somebody who is a, quote, warmonger. They look at Joe Biden as pulling out of Afghanistan with no plan, no rationale, handing over control to the Taliban, and yet getting more deeply involved in Ukraine. I think it's a big problem for them, and he could be inviting a challenge from the left. Last point, why were there 12 people at AOC's town hall meeting? These people are famous for being famous. She has millions of followers on social media, and about the same number when I invite the girls to hang out on a Thursday night at her town hall.
In the biggest city in the world. I mean, you'd think she'd have a few more actually organic
Just take
supporters.
them off the street. Let's go.
I know. And it'd be interesting to see if the Republicans can kind of peel away those young anti-war voters from the Democrats. All right, Kellyanne, thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thank you, Jesse.
So what's interesting about that clip is that I've noticed there is a segment of people who are tired of American involvement in Ukraine. You know, they don't agree with Putin invading. They don't agree with the various Ukrainians that have lost their lives, but they're tired of American involvement there. But one of the things she says that I think is really disingenuous is where she states that as Biden pulled out of Afghanistan with no plan, no rationale, he became more deeply involved in Ukraine, because I think those two things are two different things. In Afghanistan, the Taliban are an insurgent group that's from there. The situation in Ukraine is a major country illegally going into invade another country and asserting its dominance and trying to impose its way on that particular part of the hemisphere. And, you know, Biden's plan or rationale was, we've been over there for 20 years. We are still fighting. There has been no progress. Let's get out. Finally, after 4 presidents, let's end this thing that we've been stuck in for 2 decades and just be done with it. So that's the part that really kind of drives me nuts, that she seems to like not understand that these are two different things that receive two different responses, because he went into office with one of them having been taking place for 20 years and another one that started while over the last year. The other part of this that I think is kind of funny, and I don't even want to mention the AOC comments about why does she only have 12 people showing up to her event. Crowd sizes and the number of people attending things don't matter to me. But the other part of this that's interesting is that Waters, so the host, says, it'll be interesting to see if Republicans can peel away young anti-war voters from Democrats. Now, I'll give you a couple of reasons why that's never going to happen. For one thing, most voters do not, as their primary issue, vote on foreign policy because they see it as not affecting them in their day-to-day lives. This is why oftentimes when you have politicians who are like, this person will will not agree to continue our conflict with Iran or North Korea. People are like, okay, whatever, doesn't matter to me. So that's one of the reasons. The other one is that because we live in this digital age where a lot of younger voters who are inclined to vote tend to know more about this stuff than certain other people who aren't as closely tied with the internet. They know what happened before Biden took office. They know that Trump continued all 7 of Obama's wars. Obama took us from 2 wars to 7. Trump continued all of them. And for that reason, they really don't see either party as being that great of an alternative when it comes to not getting us into forever wars. And really, Trump's only claim to fame is that he didn't start any new ones. So that part was comedic to me because they're banking off the ignorance of the people that watch their stuff to help the Republicans get more people to vote for them on this issue that unfortunately a lot of people just don't really care that much about. But the most humorous part was her trying to draw the false equivalency between our involvement in Afghanistan and our involvement in Ukraine. I have no doubt in my mind the Ukraine thing is not going to go on for 20 years. I can't give a timetable. And really the one part of it I will say was legitimate was that she mentioned how we've just been giving more and more money because I think there is a legitimate conversation to have about how much foreign aid do we give to this other country. But here's where she has no room to speak. Trump increased the deficit, spent billions of dollars in the military, and this is something that's been going on with Washington and their penchant for spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year. But for that reason, it's kind of hard. That's why I said fiscal conservatives to me are people like Rand Paul or like Thomas Massey or something. Like the anti-war, we need to shrink the budget, and guys like that actually stand for something as far as they mean what they say, and they're not going to sit here and just because the president has an R by their name just blindly approve anything that gets passed for some type of aid or other program that they think is costing too much. But most of the Republicans are hypocrites. They'll go and wag their finger if you want to pass something that's hundreds of billions of dollars that has to do with a domestic program to help people, but they'll give a blind pass, with the exception of a couple of them, to hundreds of billions of dollars for conflicts that go on in these other countries. So I have no doubt in my mind that if Trump were still in office and Ukraine was being invaded by Russia, Conway her response would probably be, President Trump believes that we need to be all in if we're going to help Ukraine. I have no doubt in my mind she would say that because we've seen these people and we know that they're partisan hacks and they don't stand for anything, and their positions change and flicker and switch depending on if their team leader is in office. So, cry me a river about how much money we're spending. If you're someone who I know for a fact, were your party in power, would have no problem with that.